We're back at DermCast TV. It's Rob Casquejo, back with Doug DiRuggiero, PA of the Year 2019, Medical Educator of the Year 2022. And we're going to talk today about what you can do as a PA clinician outside of the four walls of your clinic. And I couldn't think of a better person to talk to about this than you, Doug. So, Educator of the Year, PA of the Year, you're an outstanding academic personality in dermatology and a great representation of being a great PA. So in our last segment, you talked a lot about how you built your academics, your purposeful engagement with academia to become good at what you do. So what I want to do here today is talk about how you parlayed that into doing all of the things you do outside of clinic. And there's a lot of things I know you're involved with. NPF, you're on medical boards, you engage with industry. So maybe talk about a mile-high view of how those things started, because I've known you for a long time, but I don't know how you got into these things, leadership, et cetera. Talk about how that happened.
Well, you know, I'll start off just immediately by saying that there are so many others that are friends of ours, colleagues of ours, that have already moved into these areas in full-time realms, and I just consider them just incredible vanguards that are advancing the reputation and the acceptance of derm PAs in industry. We've got so many friends that are medical directors of companies, that are product developers, that are clinical science leads for pharmaceutical companies, and so, you know, Rob Hyam and Abby Jacobson and David Davidson and Jane Mast, and some of these folks I would consider are there. And so they may have a different answer than I do, because what I've done is I've decided to stay in seeing a lot of people every day, powering out clinic, and trying to do this at the same time. But
I think that's important, because the point you're making there is that you don't have to stop being a clinician to engage in all these other things that can really potentiate who you are as a clinician.
Yeah, exactly. I think what happens in the industry realm is that the industry wants to label folks, or wants to identify, I shouldn't say label, wants to identify people as key thought leaders or TLLs, and they want to bring together this group of folks that have maybe more years of experience, have a little bit of some prominence, are involved at least a state, regional, or national level, pull them together. So you kind of start seeing the same faces being brought together all the time at ad boards and things like that. My constant push for that is that who's the rising stars? Who are the next people? Who are folks? How can we do that? I almost wish that some of these ad boards, I'm going to answer your question in a second, but I almost wish some of these ad boards allowed you to, instead of phone a friend, to bring a friend. They say, look, if you trust me to be a TLL, at the next ad board, I want to bring a PA out of my practice that I think is dynamite, that's only been in practice 3 years, but don't you want to hear their perspective? And just trust me to bring somebody that's going to do it. It's almost kind of, so I think first and foremost, you're asking me, how did I get to where I'm at? But for all those other folks out there that are where I'm at, that are involved in industry and are speaking and doing product theaters like you are on ad boards, and you know, I think my first encouragement is that what are we doing to try to bring others along behind us, you know, as others ahead of us did? I love seeing new personalities and folks on the podium and doing those things. It just makes me smile to see someone different that I've never seen do a product theater before that's up there, because that means that in their area they've been identified, they have gone through some speaker training, and now we've got folks that are doing that. So that's just a natural evolution. But and people ask me a lot, how did you get involved? How did you make it onto an ad board? How did you become a speaker? For me, I think the easiest path for that is to get involved with your local societies, because industry want to engage with societies. It's where the rubber meets the road for them. So, you know, in the early 2000s, I started the Georgia Derm PA Society. There wasn't any state societies. The SDPA was there nationally. There wasn't anyone that had organized us on a state level. So Georgia was the first state to do that. And of course, companies came and heard we were doing it and said, well, can we do a dinner for you guys? And so suddenly it became something where every other month we had a dinner at a local restaurant, and it was easy because they were bringing in speakers, and all I had to do was just advertise it, get people's emails. So you may be in a state that says, we don't have a state society, but I can do that. It's a very easy thing, especially now because the SDPA will come alongside you and help you every step of the way. They're strongly encouraging that state involvement.
This happened, that's exactly what happened in the state of Arizona. So
yeah, I mean, I tell folks, create a logo online, create a business card that just has your website on it, hand them to every rep that comes in your practice, give them 15 cards and say, I know you travel around the whole state being folks, everywhere you go, put this card and tell them to go online, register, become a member of their state organization. No membership fees up front. You will eventually get to that. Just, obtain email addresses. And so you start doing that, and then that's how you get to know folks that are in industry, and you get to know other things, and so it starts off, to me, this is one potential path, is it starts off with local involvement, and that local involvement grows to large involvement. And then I decided to get involved on the board with SDPA, but I've been coming to an SDPA conference every year since it started. I mean, the very first conference in New Orleans, 2002 or 3, I've forgotten which year it was. And so it's being involved. I just think at what you need to do. I've already talked about how important it is to go to educational experiences to be great as an academic PA. Well, those educational experiences lead to interactions with industry and with other thought leaders. So that's one way to do it. Other ways through publishing. Like I am so thankful for a friendship that has begun in my life about a year ago with Peter Young. And Peter practices in Southern California. And he just loves to write. And he's great at it. And he has a passion for trying to encourage other NPs and PAs to learn how to write and get published. And scientific publishing really is the currency of the medical world. And what I would like to see, it's been a desire of mine, a passion of mine, to see us publish more, because that's where the recognition is happening everywhere. You can get to know an MD, and they can respect you and even come to you and ask your opinion on cases, which shows the ultimate respect. But for all those PAs for all those MDs that don't know you, when they see PAs popping up as first authors and respected journals and writing review articles and being involved in trials, that's an important thing. So one way that you can gain prominence is by simply saying, I think I've got a pretty couple interesting case studies. And what Peter developed is a website called CIAD, C-I-A-D. And all it simply does is it takes folks who already published a fair amount and want to be mentors, and you can just get on the website and say, I've got a neat case study that I want to try to publish. I've never done this before. I know nothing about it. I'm a little embarrassed maybe to go to someone in my own practice. And they will link you up with a mentor, somebody who could be on the other side of the country, and that will walk you through this. And then suddenly you got one thing published, and then two things published, and three things published. And then those publications lead to entry into industry and into engagement with ad boards, because they see that you're becoming a thought leader in a certain area. So, but again, like all things, small seeds grow into great oak trees, right? Small acorns. So it's finding those acorns, putting them in the soil, and just being satisfied with being good at what you're doing right there. If your aspirations are, I want to be this right away, well, gosh, there's like nothing in life that's like that. Very few folks that just suddenly just become a respected thought leader, being in practice for 2 years. But there are ways you can begin to establish a foundation that can accelerate that. I mean, Peter's been in practice for 5 years.
Right.
And so, but he's already making what I think a tremendous impact, as others are, everyone who's in industry is making tremendous impact. So we're seeing all these inroads in the different areas that I think are important. Find your passion. You may be a person who just wants to get involved with the local family medicine residency that's at the hospital in your town and just start teaching family medicine residents. I started doing that. Said, I'll take you as students, and started teaching them. And then they said, well, will you come lecture to our whole residency program and do a lunch lecture? So I started doing a lunch lecture series, and then got some experience lecturing, cutting my teeth at that local level. And then they said, well, there's the family medicine conference that we do in our state every year that wants someone to do a derm lecture. Will you come do that? Well, yeah, I can do that. So you start cutting your teeth on the local level, and just let doors open as they will.
Okay, so let's recap this, because I want to make sure the points are very clear. Yeah. The first thing you mentioned was becoming involved with professional societies, because those when you're even just, and now, and I want to emphasize this, it could be just as simple as being a member of that society.
Correct.
Because those groups are very visible to industry folks, et cetera. So I agree with you. I think that's very important at the local level. Then, of course, with the SDPA, there's probably no forum professionally where you can become more visible to industry than to be a member of the SDPA.
That's right.
So I think those
And they're looking for leaders, board members, and lots of folks. Run, put yourself out there.
Which is a great point, because you mentioned leadership, and I think people hear that and they get very taken aback. But it's very easy to become involved in leadership because you can start with simply being a committee member. So you're not in front, you're not pushing all the ideas, you're simply helping with manpower to some specific end, whatever the committee is doing. And you can help as much or as little as you want to, and I don't think people know that. So those are good ways to get involved at that level. And then secondly, you mentioned specifically publishing, and that's pretty intimidating to most people. But I didn't know about this website, so stump it one more time, the CIAD.com.
Yeah, it's a CIAD, and it's like the collaborative, integrative, academic, I don't remember all of the letters, but CIAD.
And the purpose here is if you want to publish something, even something as simple as case study, which I think is one of the easiest
That's where you
ways,
always start.
Yes, always the easiest way to get published. And you can connect with someone who will mentor you and help you author through it, and then through in terms of trying to get it published, shopping it to publications and so forth, which is great. I never knew about it, so I'm going to check it out.
It's new. It's new, and I think that kind of thing is powerful. I mean, it's great to see your name in print, but it's also not just great but it's great to feel like you are contributing to a body of information that could impact others. I mean, the reason that you and I enjoy teaching and educating is because it touches so many more people than just your patients. Now, I love seeing patients. That's why I've stayed in clinical practice rather than moving into other areas full time. I love that. But I know that when I walk away from a lecture or I see a publication go in, that I'm potentially telling somebody something from my experience that they take back to their clinic, and suddenly it's impacting their 30 patients a day, every day. So if you have that mindset that by spending my time to get into doing these other things is not taken away from my impact on my direct patients, it's making you better at what you do, but it's also indirectly maybe impacting patients that you would never know and numbers that you would never be able to anticipate. And publishing is a good way to do that. So yes, be involved at your local or national level at whatever. They have multiple positions that have different time requirements. Find the one that's got the least time requirement. Say, this is how much time I have. How can you use me with this much time? Get involved. That gets you introduced to industry. Get involved in publishing. There are ways to get published if you've never done it before with folks that are just happy to help. No judgment. Come as you are, and I have a lot of fun doing that. And the folks that are on that board with SIAD, which I'm part of, are all extraordinarily gracious powerhouses.
Or they wouldn't be there.
They wouldn't be there.
The whole concept
it's a volunteer.
Of the website,
that website is no money, no industry support, 100% volunteer. So if you don't want to be there,
That's so cool.
And then I think too, the other way, if you want, somebody says, how do you get good at lecturing? I had a PA just a couple of weeks ago at another conference say, how have you gotten good at lecturing? Well, it takes time. It really does. And you have to be, first of all, thick-skinned, but you start off by lecturing to your patients. You come up with your great presentations on disease states and what this is. And then you also become kind of a student of communication. You listen to how other people make presentations, and you take notes. So that suddenly a lecture is not just the facts they're telling you, but it's the style at which they did it. And then you start finding kind of your own voice. And so I think that, whichever way you want to get involved with the industry, I really would like to start speaking for industry. Okay, well, you're going to have to you can't just come right out of the gate and just be an excellent public speaker. Some people can, but for me, it's been a process. And so I think that everything starts small. Again, it's the acorn.
I've told people when they ask about, stage presence and getting good on stage, I say, you're on stage every time you walk through an exam room door.
That's right.
So to resonate or to echo what you said about being a teacher, we're already lecturing when we walk into a room. So let's close out by, let's get to some really grassroots stuff in terms of engaging industry. If someone wanted to be on an ad board, if they're interested in that, and they're interested in becoming a speaker for someone, I think one of the best pieces of advice is to simply let somebody know that you want to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to walk up to you out of the clear blue sky unless you're already somehow out there, speaking, published, etc., leadership, etc. So if people are not involved in those things and they want to, I would say that's one of the best things to do. Any advice on that?
That's you have to have a little bit of boldness to do that. I've been fortunate for the most part that doors have kind of opened without me having to knock on them, but I'm a full advocate of knocking on doors, because if you really want to get somewhere, sometimes you have to let people know that's where you want to be. And I don't think that is as egotistical or narcissistic to say I want to be on an ad board, because particularly if it's this, if you are already using a product that you love and you believe in, and it's with a company that you respect, then why would you not want to be more involved with them? And so if you're doing it for the right reasons yourself, and then to be able just to tell the local rep, because they have direct connections, to say, look, I love your product, I really like your company. If there is ever an opportunity for me to be involved in an ad board status, I just want you to know that I'd be willing to give my time towards that.
And I'm so glad you said it, because it's probably the simplest thing that anyone can do.
Yeah, and they say, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Right.
Well, I'll
exactly.
I'll let my regional manager know.
Right.
And then suddenly you get a call and say, "I heard you were interested."
Right.
And
a medication you like is an easy place to start. Let your local rep know you're interested in being involved at those levels. Hey, I'd like to attend an advisory board. This is a medicine and a disease I'm very passionate about. And it's that simple, and all of a sudden you're in. At least you're in. Your foot is in the door. People know you. You'll meet very important people at those ad boards, and they'll know who you are. These people are great at remembering who you are. That's what they do for a living, and I think I'm glad you said it, because it's probably one of the easiest things people can do in terms of just lifting themselves up to that type of
well,
potential.
you're going to have to advocate for yourself in anything. I mean, self-advocation is so important. Just like I said, if you want to be in industry, ask about and get involved in industry. Like we've just said, you want to be published, go ask other people to be your mentor.
Right.
The number one, every article you read about how to get published for the first time, the number one is always find a mentor, find a mentor, find a mentor. And so that means you have to go. Mentors aren't coming looking for you.
Right.
So it is advocating again. I think I want to get published. Where can I go? Can you help me as another PA in your practice? Is it this website we've discussed? It's self-advocating, for that. Say you want to start a local society. Again, you have to go ask somebody, ask the STPA, how can I do this? What kind of support do I have? It's always got to be, if there's any theme from all of this, is that you're going to have to be willing to self-advocate if that's really what you want to do. And I think you can do it in a way that's appropriate to your lifestyle, the phase of life you're in, and the amount of time that you have. Everyone has a chance to do that if that's what they want to do.
That's great. That's all great stuff, Doug. Thank you so much, man. I really enjoy sitting with you. We don't get a chance to do it much. We got to find a way to do that more, and that's not in front of a camera.
Yeah,
so.
well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about these things, because Dermcast is just so good at offering great academic information, clinical focus, but it's sometimes nice to have an opportunity to kind of talk back a little and step back a little philosophically, and kind of just being encouraged to people to say, hey, we're all in this together, we're all working together, and we all want to help each other.
That's great, and I couldn't think of anybody better to do it. You're quite an inspiration to me, and I'm certain to many of us here at the SDPA and in this profession.
It goes both ways. I mean,
I'm just trying to keep up with you.
I consider myself really a nobody who's trying to tell somebody how to help everybody. So
that's great. That's a good philosophy. So you said you were a soccer player.
Yeah.
So what position?
I played center mid.
Center mid. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of running.
Yeah. Back and forth.
Oh, I dig it. So no wonder you're tough. You're center mid. I dig it. Well, thanks for watching Dermcast TV. You heard it from Doug. An inspiration to us all. Go be a good PA. Advocate for yourself, and be a good center mid. Rob Cascale in Miami, Florida.